fire rescue, EMS, law enforcement. These are the three components of public safety, and those who answer the call are the first responders. Welcome to another episode of 5 Alarm Task Force with your host, Steve Green. 5 Alarm Task Force presents some of the best instructors, leaders, and mentors in public safety today to educate, elucidate, and entertain. No topic is out of bounds, and every opinion has value. 5 Alarm Task Force is brought to you by 5 Alarm Task Force Corp. One family, one mission, first responders helping each other. And our sponsors, Insight Training LLC, your best bet for fire service TIC training. The Firehouse Tribune, where you can expand your horizons in emergency services and learn to work hard, stay safe, and live inspired. And we're proud to welcome as a full sponsor, Lifescan Wellness Centers, saving the lives of America's heroes. And our promotional partners, Chief Miller Products and Sites, Responder Wipes, uniquely formulated wipes for first responders to reduce the risk. Nestor Bars, the amazing new hand tool for the fire service. EFT Corporation, 40 plus years of innovation in donation and payment processing solutions. 911lifestyle.com, first responder burnout prevention and improved health. The Firefighter Cancer Foundation, fighting to extinguish firefighter cancer since 2004. The Firefighter Cancer Support Network, the Albemarle Sweet Shop, the North Florida Fire Expo, and the Great Florida Fire School. Remember, our ultimate goal is for you to be safe and return home after every call. So insert those earphones or turn up those speakers. The 5 Alarm Task Force is being dispatched right now.
Hello and welcome to the premiere of Season 6 of 5 Alarm Task Force. Happy to be back with you and happy to have you with us. My guest today is a good friend. We've been friends, we just talked about before we started recording, probably close to 30 years already. We're both from the greater Boston area. We know our hometowns kind of like intimately in the greater Boston area as well together. And he is the retired Executive Assistant Chief of the Broward County Sheriff's Office Division of Fire and Rescue, which he led for many years, starting as an EMT, coming down from Massachusetts and working his way up, getting his paramedic degree down here, and then working his way up a wonderful ladder at Broward County Fire and Rescue. And we had a mutual friend, and we met at that mutual friend's wedding, and he said, "You might know this guy from Boston," and Todd and I met. And he is now the Chief Strategy Officer of Lifescan Wellness Centers, and that is my dear friend, Todd LeDuc. Todd, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Steve. It's great to be here. It's great to see you kicking off another season with such a wonderful podcast that you have, and I'm thrilled to be back on with you.
Well, I'm glad to have you, and let's not forget our good friend, Dr. Donnie Hutchison. You do a regular podcast with Dr. Donnie on finding balance. Dr. Donnie's been a guest here, and if you listen to this podcast he did with us, and when he does with Todd and his podcast, you need to listen. If you're an active firefighter, law enforcement, medical professional, paramedic, and if you're in that group of us that you serve other people out of the goodness of your heart, then you got to listen to Dr. Donnie, because without a doubt, and we've all listened to a lot of podcasts and a lot of prophets out there, but I'll tell you something, Dr. Donnie is the real thing, and he helps us, not you, he helps us try to find balance in our lives. Because again, if you're a first responder of any type, balance is not a word that you hear often. So Dr. Donnie, thank you. And we're looking forward to have you on this season as well. It is great to be back. I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't sure if we were going to have a sixth season this year because of my health, but we're staying balanced, to use the term again. And we were able to come back and start off a new season. We have some great guests already booked for upcoming shows. But today we want to start off with a couple of big announcements. As many of you know, we are sponsoring a webinar on August the 31st, just a couple of weeks away, Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. It is entitled PFAS, How We Can and Will Move Ahead Towards a Safe Future. And we have 6 great guests who are going to be with us. It includes IAFF General President Ed Kelly, who I just learned 2 weeks ago is still a Boston Jake. He's still an active Boston firefighter, which I am thrilled to hear. Attorney Rob Bilott of Chaff Law Group. And Attorney Bilott is out there for us, for firefighters, representing firefighters across the country regarding the PFAS and PFOS in the bunker gear. Dr. Graham Peasley of the University of Notre Dame, who did the atomic research, the nuclear research on our gear and found the answers that we needed to have. Jeff Nobby, PPE specialist, worked very closely with Dr. Peasley. Sean Mitchell, who's the deputy chief now, and congrats, Sean, on your promotion of the Nantucket Fire Department. And Jason Burns of the Fall River Local 1314, and Sean is with 2509 Local in Nantucket. And these two, with among a couple of other gentlemen, were the ones who brought the resolution to the IAFF International Convention in January, where it was passed that the IAFF will no longer accept funds from manufacturers that will not work and to rid the forever chemicals from our gear and to protect us from our gear, from the old AFFF that we use, etc. So that's on the 31st. And if you'd like tickets, we have still tickets available. We're going to tell you what the 2 major prizes are going to be. And that's why one of the reasons why Todd's here. But you can go to this website, https://bit, like B as in boy, it.ly/PFOS_PFOA 2021. And you'll see that all over social media, where we put it on we put it on Twitter, it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook and LinkedIn from us, and of course all the other members of the 5-Alarm Task Force team have put it on theirs as well. Now, one of the things we want to tell you right now, and hopefully this will boost our ticket sales a little bit, is that the first raffle we're going to tell you about, well, that's a simple one. We're going to give away 3 of our t-shirts, and everybody's name who has purchased a ticket will be put into the hat, and we'll pull those 3 hats out. We'll contact you to know what color and size you like, and we'll ship it to you at no cost. So those are our 3 little general door prizes. We weren't satisfied with that. So I turned to my friend, Todd, and I said, Todd, this is what this webinar is about. And I guess we have to include, I didn't do your long biography, but Todd is the Chief Strategy Officer for Lifescan Wellness Centers. But his entire time in the fire service of Broward County, his whole aim, and I guess you could say his life work, was in firefighter health, wellness, and fitness for duty. That's what he cared about. It was important to him. And for over a decade, he brought Lifescan Wellness Centers to Broward County Fire Rescue. And through their great work, Todd, how many people do we know that they found something and was mitigated, and most of them went back to work?
It's countless. I know just in this last year for annual physicals at Broward, we had 4 of my brother and sister firefighters that had early detection of their cancer, 2 bladder cancers and 2 prostate cancers. So that's just one department, and they're alive today because of it.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And so Todd and I talked about it, and he talked to the wonderful people at Lifescan, who we are very happy to announce also today are now full partners in as our sponsors on 5-Alarm Task Force. And it's really a pleasure to welcome them. They've been with us for over a year as a promotional partner. And Todd, why don't you tell them what this is going to be, the grand prize from Lifescan.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And I got to give Steve credit where credit's due. Certainly, when he reached out to me with this idea, And PFAS is such an issue that we continue to grapple with in the fire service. Steve knows, I've spent most of my career, whether it be at Broward or my role on the board of directors for the International Association of Fire Chiefs and their Safety, Health, and Survival section, being guided by folks a lot smarter than myself, typically our research community, to help folks, whether you're on the leadership side as a chief or whether you're on the labor union leadership side, help better understand the health issues that we face as firefighters, so then we can address them and do it by following the science. So, and PFAS is one of those issues that we're following the science. So when Steve came to me and said he's put this rock star panel together on the issue of PFAS, and would I consider partnering with Lifescan? To me, it was a no-brainer because our mission at Lifescan is pretty simple. It's saving the lives of America's heroes. So what we decided to do, and when we kind of discussed this, is when you take whether it's PFAS or whether it's occupational cancer exposure in our profession. Here's what we know. Obviously, prevention, risk reduction, those are key. But hand in hand with that has to go early detection, because we know that if you find a cancer at its earliest stage, by and large, we have excellent outcomes that you go on, you continue your career, you continue your service, you continue to spend time with those that you love, and then go into retirement. Conversely, unfortunately, if we don't find the cancer early, we find it when there's already symptoms and there's already spread. Tragically, we see the consequences all too often in our service and in our profession. So what we decided to do was to partner with a grand prize to all the attendees that register for this great webinar, to raffle off a full 3-hour Lifescan annual medical early detection physical. So, I guess the question is, what is that? What does that mean? I can tell you this: Lifescan now is this year we'll see approximately 50,000. Think about that: 50,000 of our brother and sister first responders across the country in about 25 states. And we do a very comprehensive, tailored approach to early detection for first responders. So that includes blood work prior to seeing you for the 3-hour physical. So we'll coordinate the drawing of blood chemistry, looking again at early markers of detection within the blood panels. And then we'll have that information back. So by the time we see the first responder, we've already been able to look at their blood panels. If we've seen them previously, hopefully we see them every year. We can actually trend and analyze changes, and even subtle changes. And then we do a 3-hour physical. So we have several bricks and mortar clinics here in Florida that we operate. But the majority of what we do around the country is we send a 3-person clinical team to your department and actually perform. Steve mentioned my former department, which is Broward County, Florida, about 850 or so members. So we're on site there for about 6 months doing their annual physicals, and it's 3 hours. So we do 1 hour is with an exercise physiologist that is a graduate trained and educated. We call them EPs. That spend about an hour doing the NFPA 1583 fitness assessment, all evolving around our ability to do the 13 essential job functions of firefighters. So they'll look at things such as aerobic capacity, muscle endurance, strength, flexibility, back strength. They'll also do resting 12-lead EKG. They'll do a 12-lead EKG stress test looking for cardiovascular function. And that's about an hour, and it's a wonderful baseline. It shows where you're at, where areas that you need to work on to reduce your cardiovascular risk, to reduce your risk even of injury on the fire ground. The second component is with a highly trained ultrasound technician that will do about an hour ultrasound screening of many of the key vessels and organs. So both of your carotid arteries, your thyroid cartilage, your aorta, both thoracic as well as abdominal aorta, again, looking for blockages, aneurysms, anything, and again, we want to find these things early. Left ventricular wall movement, so we can actually look at the cardiac output. We can look at the left ventricle, all the abdominal organs, and then in men, ultrasound of the testicles, and in women, the external pelvic cavity. Again, looking for anything anatomically that is suspicious, and anatomically that's not supposed to be there, and could be indicative of disease process. I can tell you, I mentioned the 4 survivors in Broward. We just late last night, I just had an email from Charlottesville, Virginia. One of their members just went in. We do the Charlottesville Fire Department. And on imaging, we found a bladder mass, turned out to be bladder cancer early. Same in Broward, one of my captains, 43-year-old, Mike Stone. We actually did a Target Solutions webinar with Mike and myself, asymptomatic. So when we're talking, whether it's PFAS or occupational carcinogen exposure from toxic fumes, these brother and sisters are coming in for their exams, in many cases, asymptomatic, yet on imaging, we will find an early stage cancer. So that panel takes about an hour. In the imaging, beautiful part about ultrasound is it's non-invasive, there's no radiation, and the quality of the imaging allows us to get basically it's an internal stethoscope that we can actually see what's happening within the body. And then the last hour is with a nurse practitioner that will actually conduct the full NFPA 1582 head to toe physical. We'll go over all your stress test findings, your ultrasound imaging findings. We'll go over all your lab work. We'll also look at some nutritional overview, a behavioral health screening. In that 3 hours, you'll leave with not only all your records, but any follow-ups that you may need to have. And, I feel so passionate. I look at just the amount of early detection we found in Broward. Now, if I pull up, and I'm the chief strategy officer for Lifescan, as you mentioned, we could do a show, all day just on I mentioned Charlottesville. The month before, it was Dan Eglishan's department in Virginia that had a 37-year-old trainer. They switched to Lifescan on imaging. We found a mass on one of his kidneys, turned out to be malignant. Sadly, he had to lose that one kidney because it was that far involved, but he survived and is cancer-free and is back on the line as a trainer. So these stories go on and on throughout the course of the day, as you can imagine, now that we're in 25 states. So for us, the gift of the physical is, God forbid that there is a disease process such as cancer. is being able to find these at the earliest stages. Is obviously we want to prevent them. But if, I've learned in life and in our profession, it's perhaps never going to be completely risk-free. So a component of that prevention and risk reduction has to be early detection. So we're proud to partner. We're excited, thrilled about it, and thrilled that you're hosting this most important topic. And we're just so happy to be a small part of it.
Well, thank you, and we're thrilled to have you. It's been great to have you on for the last year as a promotional partner. And every time I say the name in the credits, I'm always thinking about somebody that we talked about who benefited from that Lifescan, and how important it was for them, their family, and that they're back at work. The vast majority of them are back at work. I think we need to mention, though, that if with this gift, if you win this prize, there were 4 brick and mortars, right, in Florida? 3 or 4?
We actually have 3. We've got Jacksonville, Tampa, and then Largo.
So if your department doesn't do them on a regular basis, you can come down now. Your travel, your hotel, per diems are not covered by the gift, but the full exam is completely covered. So if you want to make a little extended vacation and come down to Florida to one of the 3 brick and mortars, I have no doubt that we can get assistance to tell you, where to, places to stay near the brick and mortar centers. And then you'll be able to come down, get your physical done, spend a little time in the sunshine of Florida, and know that you've had a terrific exam that could be literally life-saving. And that's the point. And that's why we put this together. We know, as Todd just mentioned, a lot of departments bring in the teams from Lifescan Wellness, but they have this motto that they live by, and that is saving America's heroes, because that's what they do. Between firefighters, law enforcement, paramedics, this is what they do. This is what they're dedicated to doing. So we felt that, as Todd just said, since the webinars on PFAS, and we listen, PFAS for the last year and a half kind of overshadowed our carcinogenic, on the job exposures. But we've been there since 2016. We've been pushing the Firefighter Cancer Initiative. Todd and I are mutual good friends from University of Miami, Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center, Dr. Cabar Martinez and his team. They've been on the show before. They'll be on again. They just had the symposium, a great symposium. If you didn't have a chance to watch the virtual symposium, it was amazing. And they've already scheduled the one for 2022. The email came out, I think, last week or just a week before. Hopefully we'll be able to be there for that one. We don't have to just go virtual with that. So that's our grand prize. And then I wanted something else, because this is so important, both sides. The forever chemicals, sometimes we don't even realize, we know they dated back to 77. That's when I started. God almighty, that's when I started. So there's nothing we can do per se for that individually, but the Firefighter Cancer Initiative and our decon emphasis is alive and well. And so we've been very lucky, and we welcome on board as a promotional partner today, Tonya Herbert and the great men and women of Respond to Wipes, who have donated our first prize, which will be 1 carton of medium-sized Respond to Wipes, including 1 8-ounce bottle of the Respond to Wash for the individual winner. And for that winner's department, a medium-sized responder crate for the 1 case of the full responder for the entire department. So our thanks to Respond to Wipes and Tonya Herbert for coming on board and helping us with the seminar and becoming promotional partners with us, because we're going to talk about them frequently. And I'm looking forward to having Tonya as a guest on the podcast as well. So these are the 2 incentives we're offering above and beyond what we want to do for you. Again, I want to stress this webinar is not to beat up the manufacturers. That's done. We finished that. That's in the past. Okay. Some things are changing faster than others, but we're not doing bashing. We brought this group together to show you and to tell you how we will come out of this okay. And there are changes being made to protect us. And that's what we want to stress in this webinar. And these 6 great speakers that are going to be members of the webinar and presenters, they're going to give you those messages. And I think, starting off with Ed Kelly, I couldn't be happier. His office has been tremendously helpful. Corinne and Pat and Derek and all the people they have there and what they've done. I'm going to say this outright. I said this to Pat Morrison when we spoke a week and a half ago. I was always a volunteer. My 8 years till I got hurt, I was a volunteer. But because it was a small combo department, we had 4 paid guys. They were members of the IAFF. And yet they never said that they were different from us, or we never said we were different from them. Whether you're a career firefighter and you're a member of the IAFF, you're a volunteer, you're part pay, you're wildland, we all take the same oath, and we all do the same job. Some of us do it for our career and our paycheck. Some of us do it for the goodness of our hearts, for our communities. And some of us do it because it's a challenge that we want to face and help the people around us. And, let's look at our great wildland firefighters. They don't even know where they're going to go sometimes. They just get picked up in a plane and dropped off someplace. And we are all a family. And that's what we have to remember. Union does not make anybody better or less worthy, or volunteer more or less worthy. We're all in this together. And if after listening to President Kelly speak a couple of times now about what's going on in the fire service and our firefighter cancer initiative in Boston, you've seen here, we've had the video up on the website, how seriously Boston took the cancer initiative because of how hard they were hit by it. And they've done a great job in Boston. And that President Kelly comes from Boston, is active Boston firefighter. And listening to him speak in the last couple of weeks, couple of times online, really sold me that this is the guy who can talk to all of us and carry the message that there is a future for us. We're not going to go. When have we ever backed out and cowed down? We don't do that. We don't do that. We can be faced with a whole wall of fire and we can see the devil dancing in front of us. We just pull our coats a little tighter, pull up our bunker pants, grab that hose tight in, and we go in. And that's what we do. Or we carry our tools in and we do our search. We do our vent. Whatever we have to do, we do. We don't let ourselves be turned away unless we have absolutely no choice, because that's who we are. And so we want to show you in this webinar that, yes, have we been scared a little bit by the PFAS and PFOS? Yeah, we have. But we also have to remember it's not just us. My grandson, who was born in May, was born with PFAS in his blood. All of us now have PFAS in our blood, some level of it. Matter of fact, it's estimated that of the 7+ billion people in the world today, the vast majority all have PFAS in their blood already. So we can't change what's there, but we can change what we need to use to protect ourselves. And with the right people backing us up, we can make those changes and still be firefighters, law enforcement officers, paramedics, and EMTs, wear our bunker gear safely, and know that we always have to worry about still on-scene carcinogenic exposure, but we have ways of deconning. We've been doing that now for 2 years, 3 years now, and we're expanding that, and that's going even better. So as long as your department is dedicated to gross decon on scene where needed, that's the first step. And you know the rest of the steps, and we'll get to that in a later program later on. But we hope you'll join us Tuesday night, the 31st of August at 6:30 p.m. Tickets are available. Tickets are $20 each, and the net proceeds will go to the Five Alarm Task Force Corp Foundation account, which is the only account that we use for one thing, and that is to assist our brothers and sisters and or their families in dire need. And I can tell you that from October to just a couple of weeks ago, we've donated over $2,000 that we had raised. Two small gifts went to two small volunteer departments that had been decimated, one by fire, one by a terrible accident. And the rest have gone to the survivors, the families of brothers who made the ultimate sacrifice. And so we want to help their families. So this is what we do with that money. That's the only thing we do with it. It only goes to help our brothers and sisters in the fire service right now. And God willing, we raise enough money, we're going to expand that. That's our goal. We are one family with one mission, first responders helping each other. And that's what we're all about. So we are glad to have you with us as we start the new season, season 6. We have some great guests coming up, including, you mentioned Charlottesville. Well, former Charlottesville Chief Charlie Werner will be back on with some new tech. I mean, Chief Werner, boy, he has his thumb on the pulse of the tech in the fire service, and he's got some new stuff. He told me a couple of weeks ago, and we were supposed to get on at the end of season 5, and we both had problems, so we decided to postpone it. And he's already booked now for this season. He'll be on in a couple of weeks with new information. He's spoken about FirstNet already, and now, of course, we're going to bring up the concept of the Verizon Frontline, which is brand new, as another first responder agency. So we'll talk about that in future episodes. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, Todd and I are going to talk about a little more detail of Lifescan Wellness Centers, their goals, how they work, how you can take information maybe to your department and say, hey, this might be a good idea for us. Can you at least look into it or something like that? And we'll get all that information from Todd as soon as we come back. So please stay tuned. If you're watching the video, you won't see anything different for the break. We'll be right back, and it'll look like we started right where we were. If you're listening to the audio, we'll be right back right after these words. As always, please stay tuned. Okay, and welcome back to this episode of Five Alarm Task Force. It is our premiere episode for season 6, and my guest is my good friend, former executive assistant chief at Broward County Sheriff's Office Fire and Rescue, and now chief strategy officer for Lifescan Wellness Centers, Todd LeDuc. And Todd's been on several times, of course, before when he was still working with Broward Fire, and since he's been with Lifescan. It's funny, he tells a story that I was at his retirement ceremony a couple of years ago. Wonderful ceremony, just as many honors as they put on him. There should have been a few more, but it was a great ceremony. He took the next day and played golf, and the next day he went to work for Lifescan. So that was his retirement, one day playing golf. But one of the things we haven't talked about, and I think would be great at this point, is what made him turn to Lifescan Wellness Centers way back when he was the executive assistant chief. His portfolio basically was the health and welfare and safety of the firefighters. So, Todd, how did it start with you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Steve. And I do want to say I get told all the time that I've failed the retirement test miserably, like many of us do. I mentioned my co-host on our Lifescan Wellness podcast, Dr. Donnie. I tell him we're all still a work in progress, as you mentioned on the work-life balance. But no, I guess to frame this, and I say this today, I guess it's less of an issue today than maybe it was when I first had health and wellness under myself at Broward. My role at the IFC and being on the board of directors. You look at nationally where we're losing firefighters over and over. And then when I came down to the department level in my own department at Broward, like many departments, we have a memorial wall with the pictures of each of our brother and sister firefighters that made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. Um, and when I knew just about all, probably except one personally. I started in February of 1990, having come down from the Northeast. But when I looked at each of the pictures, it struck me that, whether it was a cardiac event, whether most of them, quite frankly, were cancer, occupational cancers, perhaps behavioral health, largely they potentially could have been prevented. And I say that with the utmost of respect for the department, for the fire service, and for their memories and legacies. And that always stuck in my mind, that we needed to perhaps look at it differently, approach it differently. And then I just happened to be invited to speak at the South Carolina State Fire Academy. And if you haven't been there, it's a beautiful academy. It's one of the best academies I've seen out there, with just so much resources and land. They've got ARF, they've got training towers, they've got extrication, USAR, props. But at the same time, the CEO and co-founder of Lifescan, Patricia Johnson, was also speaking at that same conference, South Carolina Firefighters Conference. And so we got to interact. I got to learn a little bit about how comprehensive Lifescan was, that it was not only the NFPA 1582 and the NFPA 1583. And I think you've heard me maybe say this recently, and I can say this, I guess, humbly, being a technical committee member of NFPA. I look at NFPA as being kind of a baseline, meaning that what Lifescan does is takes that baseline and then incorporates kind of additional testing, whether that be additional labs, whether that be the imaging, certainly, and then we incorporate it into a comprehensive 3-hour, tailored to first responders and firefighters exam that is uniquely positioned to find occupational diseases at the earliest incipient stages. So that clicked on me that, I'm losing brother and sister firefighters from disease processes that, if we found it early and had processes in place to do that, we wouldn't be losing them. The reality of cancer is in many, if not most cancers, and it's the same for almost any disease process. If we find it at the incipient stage, survival is close to 95 to 100%. If we find it when symptomology is present, often there's spread, there's advanced disease process, and the outcomes are not nearly anywhere the same. So I came back from South Carolina. I sat down with Walt Dix, who many of you who are listening know. I know Walt, who for many years was my union president at Broward, is now the 12th district vice president of the IFF. So he's got, I think it's 7 or 8 states from the Carolinas on south that are under his purview. And we just had a great dialogue. We had, at the time, we're only doing entry-level physicals. And for our special ops team, so hazmat and technical rescue, and we both acknowledged that we needed to make this happen because it was going to save members' lives, and we also acknowledged it probably might be a heavy lift because, as you can imagine, whether you're talking volunteer departments or union departments, if you've been on the job for 20 years and you've never had a physical. And then, a young chief like myself comes along and says, we're going to start doing physicals. There can be a lot of fear and trepidation. And we kind of worked through and talked about, how we were going to deal with that. And to labor's credit, we both kind of struck a deal that labor agreed they would get behind making it mandatory. So you actually had to have the Lifescan Wellness Centers annual physical. And I, as administration, agreed that we would make it a wellness exam. So it would be completely confidential. Kind of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So, and I trust my firefighters, right? I say all the time, I trust firefighters to drive a $1.2 million tower ladder. For the most part, they do a great job with that. And so I trust our firefighters that if they have a physical and something's found, our clinical team's going to tell them next steps to protect themselves and their health and their family. I trust they're going to take those next steps. And so we did, I think at the time we had 25 stations. Walt, 3 shifts. We're on a 24/48 shift schedule. So Walt, myself, or a member of the executive board went to 75 station visits. And labor needed to get this ratified as a letter of understanding and a change in working conditions. So we sat at the kitchen table 75 times, labor and myself, and just laid out that, hey, this is not about punitive. It's not about hurting anyone. We've lost a number of our brother and sister firefighters, and it's from things that we should have probably not have lost them from. And if we had this comprehensive physical in place then, they'd likely be alive today. And we did that. We had great, I won't lie, we had a few prickly stations that were skeptical. But I think it passed overwhelmingly. It got ratified 90 to 10. Sure as heck, in the first couple months, we found one in particular sticks out of my mind. Chris Thompson. He's become, a large advocate for Lifescan. We found a very aggressive thyroid cancer that he wasn't aware was asymptomatic. His endocrinologist, his oncologist said that had it not been found, it would have spread past the thyroid into the lymph nodes, and it would have been a lot different outcome. And just recently, he sent, I think that was his remission letter, and he's still cancer-free to this day, and had a picture of his children grown up and wanted to thank us. But Chris then became the largest advocate for Lifescan. So it wasn't Chief LeDuc or Walt Dix. It was one of our, tip of the spear firefighters that said, hey, I'm alive because of this. And 5 years before we didn't have this, someone wouldn't be alive. So with that, the local, you may have even seen this, the local just this past year made a video themselves praising how many members of the department are alive because of Lifescan Wellness Centers and the comprehensiveness of early detection. So I'm real proud of kind of how this evolved, and I hope it's a model to other departments, because I always do hear sometimes the fear of implementing physicals, and sometimes I hear the cost, but I say to people all the time, when I speak at conferences, I ask if you know someone, a brother firefighter or sister that you've lost from cancer, cardiac, or suicide, stand up. And the entire room is always standing. And, in my mind, we have early detection for each of those. And, if we can just apply that, then get the people the help they need when they have a disease process and get it taken care of, the outcomes are wonderful. My goal is, when I ask that question, not to have one person standing in the room.
Sure.
And I don't know if we'll get there, but, I'm certainly going to do whatever I can to assure that we do. And at the end of the day, I also often say to chiefs and to volunteer departments and labor unions, we would never think. The other question I ask is, how many people here don't have a preventative maintenance program for your apparatus, stand up. Not one person stands, right? So we would never think of putting our firefighters in a truck with no brakes, bald tires, and the lights don't work. I mean, it wouldn't happen.
Well, as long as the queue is working, we're okay.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. But that same mindset should be for, taking care of our firefighters, and that's early detection. I think it's how it's presented too, right? It has to be about, this is, National Fallen Firefighters has the everyone goes home, and that's really what it has to be about. It can't just be a slogan, everyone goes home. It needs to be, hey, we've got this model of, think about it, where else can you go and get bundled at the same time a 3-hour comprehensive physical that's designed around the health of first responders. And we've for 23 years, Lifescan's had that, and it's just getting it out there and getting it into departments to make sure that, listen, we know the research tells us that we're at risk, for higher risk of certain diseases as a firefighter. So we need to, knowing that, we need to put the pieces in place to protect ourselves. And as we said earlier in the segment, prevention is part of that. Risk reduction is part of that. I just did a fire engineering article on human risk reduction, but also comprehensive early detection has to be bundled together with those pieces. So we stop this just horrendous cycle. I call it a cycle, but when we see, we've done a great job with reducing traumatic and burn injury line of duty deaths from fire, but we still continue to put names on the walls for cancer, cardiac, and I look at suicide as, as a line of duty in many cases. I mean, that's the far extreme of behavioral health, but there's a lot of early warning signs before someone gets to that bad spot. And we can detect for those. There's testing, there's early detection for behavioral health issues, whether that's sleep or stress or chemical dependency, and then get those folks the help they need. So that was the journey that personally I took at Broward. And then it was just a logical extension after my one day of golf to be able to take what I knew to be the case at Broward, what I knew to be the case. I've spent much of my time at the IFC advocating for firefighter physicals. The numbers say we need to do a lot better job at that, both on the career and certainly on the volunteer side. So this has actually allowed me to take that passion and that knowledge and apply it across the United States, which has been very rewarding.
Well, it's a great story, and you made something I want to follow up on for our viewers and listeners. One of the things that Todd just mentioned is that after your exam, if something is found, they give you the information of what a person, just not an actual reference, but the kind of doctor to see or how to follow up and things like that. And we want you to understand that you choose your own physicians for your follow-ups after your exam. Lifescan doesn't have anything to do with that. They'll give you all your records that you can take to your own medical professionals that you already see or that you care for or whatever you've been referred to, and you'll have everything that you need to get started with them. And you choose your people in your community. You don't have to stay where, if you come down to one of the Florida Lifescan brick and mortar buildings, no, you don't have to stay there for all your treatment, or wherever you live in the country. If you do get results that need mitigation, you go to your community and you find those people that you have faith and trust in your community to mitigate it. But the advantage is that you know about it, where a few days before that, you didn't know squat that there was a problem. And having gone through what I've gone through for the last 6.5 months of having a mystery malady, having been to very numerous doctors, multiple workups, and we still don't know what the problem is, I would change my place with somebody going to a Lifescan checkup in a minute. I would give up my time to do it just for the peace of mind. If I was a firefighter, or a police officer or an EMT paramedic for knowing, oh, everything's okay. Oh boy, it was tough and I'm sweating like a pig, but that was a great exam and now I'm okay. I know that. There's nothing more valuable than being able to walk out of that testing and you're fine. You get that diagnosis, you're clear. We didn't find anything. You're good. We'll see you next year.
And that's a great point, Steve. And even if you are fine, it creates such a comprehensive, beautiful baseline that every year, as hopefully your department provides a Lifescan comprehensive exam, even the most subtle of changes are going to be detected. So again, that's the key to finding things so early. I'll use, if you indulge me, just a quick example. I mentioned one of my hazmat captains, Lieutenant Mike Stone, that we did a joint webinar with Target Solutions. Some of you may have seen it. It was with Keith Tyson from the Firefighter Cancer Support Network as well.
Sure.
But Mike, 43-year-old hazmat captain at Broward, went through Lifescan just the year prior, had a completely normal exam, beautiful exam. Everything was where it should be. Came back in the following cycle, was completely asymptomatic, felt good. Everything was wonderful, was just going through the motions of another annual wellness physical for the department. He came in, most of the exam was beautiful. On imaging, we found a mass on the bladder that was suspicious, anatomically shouldn't be there. And Mike tells the story, and you mentioned it in terms of next steps. So obviously we're going to say, next steps is either you need to see your primary that follows you, which we always recommend to keep your primary in the loop, sure. But also, urology in this case. So Mike reached out to one of the top urologists here in South Florida at Broward Health, which large, I think it's the 4th largest healthcare system in the country, and tells his story, not mine, that the physician was not accepting new patients. But when he heard 43-year-old firefighter, right? So we know firefighters higher risk, bladder cancer, asymptomatic, but has a mass on imaging, said, I'll see you at my office at 9 in the morning the following day. So Mike was able to get in, was told by the urologist, based on the quality of the imaging that Lifescan had done, that it was a bladder cancer, early stage, and went through with treatment and has returned full duty status very quickly with a great outcome. But here's what I took away from it. The urologist told him he'd been practicing urology for 3 decades. And he said, I've got to tell you, you're the first asymptomatic presentation of a bladder cancer. Normally, symptomatic, there's blood in the urine, pain on urination, distension. But it was the imaging. And I know you and I talked about it before, some of the insurance and some of the U.S. Preventative Task Force recommendations that are out there. Unfortunately, they're not tailored to firefighters.
Right.
So, one of the things that we've done at Lifescan is kind of flip that upside down to say, in our mindset, we should be applying these tools annually to find symptoms, to find disease processes before the symptoms start. And in Mike's case, he was a great example, and his urologist, I think, was scratching his head a little bit about why he had the ultrasound panel. But literally, think about how much a cancer would grow in that 1 year until his next exam.
Right.
So instead of a stage 1, maybe he'd be a stage 2, or maybe even beyond that. So that's another passion we talked about sort of before we started that I have, is continuing to champion the cause that firefighters are unique because of the work we do, and how it affects our health. And we can't look at a firefighter any other patient that we would see if you're a clinician. So
Right.
unique risk, unique health exposures in our exams have to be tailored to those. And I continue to champion that even at NFPA. We'll continue to do so and, cry from the mountaintops. And we're fortunate at Lifescan, given that we see 50,000 first responders, you can imagine. Some of them we've seen for over 2 decades. We have a ton of data. And we're able to, I think, use some of that data to help drive change. So to me, that's another really exciting part of being in a position to maybe help continue to evolve the landscape for early detection.
That's great. It really isn't. I want to carry that even one more step. I met the gentleman who is now my hematologist oncologist. I met him through a friend. My friend was diagnosed with, a friend for 30 years was diagnosed with lung cancer. And he and his wife asked me to come with him to the appointment to help kind of translate some of the medicalese. So I went, and the doctor and I hit it off. And I had a scare in the end of 2016 from an MRI. I have a medication pump implanted in me from my back. Well, the port is at T10. It's always been at T10 since 2005. And so I had my pain management doctor needed a fresh MRI. So I went to, we'll just say a local hospital. We won't say which one, and had an MRI done. And I get the reading back. I look it up online the next day, and it shows, the lower back is crappy. We know that, multiple surgeries. There's an anomaly at T10. Can't rule out multiple myeloma. I said, T10, that's my port. So I called my pain management doctor right away and told him. He goes, let me pull it up and I'll call you right back. And I said, okay. And he called me about half hour later. He says, Steve, that's your port for the pump. I said, I know. He says, well, come in tomorrow morning at 8:00. I want to say, don't tell the girls, just come in, I'll meet you. And so I went, Ruth and I went the next morning, and he was there, and he said, look, I called you primary. She looked at it. We know it's your port. It's your port. But I said, so why is he saying it's an anomaly and could be, multiple myeloma? He goes, I don't know, it's your port. I've tried calling him, but I can't get to him. He says, but I think we have to get you checked just to be safe. Do you have somebody? I said, well, I haven't seen him personally as a patient, but I know somebody right around the corner here in Tamarack is an excellent oncologist. So I went to him, and he put me through. He says, look, we got to check you out. I know your port. I know you're anemic, but let's check you out anyway. So we went through the whole thing. And so it came out, everything was clear in the end, and it was the port. But we became friends and patient doctor as well. And so I went for a regular checkup with him. And I said, having been a firefighter, I worry about the firefighter cancers. He goes, what? I said, the Firefighter Cancer Initiative. He goes, what is that? He wasn't aware. So I told him. He says, really? I said, yeah. And I said, I've already been online with and had one of the lead doctors from the Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center teams on the show. We've talked about it. He goes, well, tell me about it. So I sat with him for another half hour, told him about the Firefighter Cancer Initiative. He had no idea. He said, oh my God, I could have had firefighters come in here that I didn't realize that, because they were younger, I didn't think of anything like that. He got into it. And now it's a part of his practice. He knows that if it's a younger person, he's going to check, were you a firefighter? Was this your occupation? Were you a volunteer? Were you a career? Stuff like that. And he's been staying in touch with the team at UM, and I'm working with him now. He's trying to help whatever way he can, but it was great that he did all this reading and all this research on his own to follow up and become someone acquainted with it, so that now he would know that there's that possibility that a patient could come in who's not, in their retirement point, and they're active workers, and they come in with this. They've been told that they, have maybe it was from maybe Lifescan scan down here or whatever. But at least now here's another doctor, and I guess he's been carrying it on with some of his colleagues and stuff like that. So to know that we can spread this message and not just for our people, the firefighters and law enforcement and EMS people, but now we can have doctors who are interested in saying, wait a second, I can't make my practice just about that, but I sure want to know about that, so that if somebody comes into my practice in that situation, I have a better idea of what they're talking about, and I'm fairly current on the topic.
For sure. Absolutely. And, that continues to be a challenge, and I get it. For practitioners, particularly, insurance, time able to be spent with patients, so many different occupations, keeping up with just the firefighter health, evolving research is a full-time job. Particularly if that's what your practice is. So at the IFC, you may know, and it's out there to download, we developed a healthcare provider's guide to firefighter physicals. You can print it out. We're doing a version 2.0 update currently, but it was intended for taking it to your primary physician or your oncologist that you just mentioned, and in 3 minutes gives them a crash course on why we're different as firefighters with our health, and why perhaps additional screening is necessary. I will say, with Lifescan, one of the advantages we have is our 20 some odd clinical teams that run around the country. That's all they do. They only see first responders, and with that, that's our lane. We're able to keep up with the evolving research, the knowledge base that we have for first responders. Of course, myself being on the board of IFC and NFPA helps. And we're one thing we haven't talked about, but we've partnered with a lot of great researchers like Dr. Denise Smith, Dr. Sarah Jenke, and others to actually use our data that we have, de-identified, of course, confidential, of course, but to do research as well. So it's challenging. I mean, even for occupational physicians, if their entire practice is not first responders, they've got to keep up with DOT, FAA, all the different occupations. I had the same experience even with my primary. He maybe has 3 firefighters out of his 2,000 plus practice, so to be able to give him a document to say, hey, in a quick 2 or 3 minute read, because that's, in many cases, all the time they can, devote within that patient encounter, gives them, the facts, that we're 9%, greater risk of cancer. We're 14% higher mortality of cancer. We, 80% of cardiac death in firefighters has underlying cardiac heart disease and enlarged left heart, and we can screen for those. So that continues to be an evolving area that we need to work on, is educating our clinicians. But
Right.
At Lifescan, at least for the piece we do, which is the early detection, that's all we've dedicated our staff just to seeing first responders. So and I know we've talked a lot, but I know we have limited time too. We have a great resource on our website, which is lifescanwellness.com. Not only does it tell you more about what we do and how we do it and how to get a hold of us, but we also have a whole resource toolbox on there that has resources that you can use within your departments to educate on cancer, cardiac, behavioral health, and nutrition and fitness. So, and I'd be remiss, Dr. Lori Moore, our good friend from CEO, formerly of the IFF, assistant to the general president, but now CEO of the International Public Safety Data Institute. We've partnered with her, and it's on the website, about exposure tracking as well, which is so important that in order to protect yourself and your family, particularly with presumptions, to be able to have documentation of those exposures. I mean, if we find the cancer and here's all my exposures over the years, it's just going to make getting the benefits that you and your family deserve so much easier. So we've partnered with her as well on that front.
That's great. And by the way, if you're a volunteer firefighter or part pay, the NVFC, the National Volunteer Fire Council, also has on their website a section that you can look and download a similar document to tell your primary care physician that you are a firefighter. Even if you're a volunteer, you're still a firefighter, and what it means to be a firefighter, what we're exposed to, et cetera. And again, as Todd just said, it's not a book for them to read. It's just a quick list that they can look over so they'll know what to look for and possibly test you for if you come in with certain symptoms, or if they feel, you know what, if you've been exposed to this kind of stuff, maybe we should just get you some testing now and just see if everything's okay. And both those links, now we'll update the link once the new version, the 2.0 comes out for the from the IAFF. So we'll update the link for that, because we do have both links on our website at www.5-alarmtaskforcecorp.org. And we'll have the latest ones put up there within the next couple of days as well. So, I think this has been a great premiere episode for a new season. I think we've been able to give our listeners and our viewers good information, positive, strong information of how to take care of themselves. Not every department can bring Lifescan down. That doesn't mean you don't have to, that you can't take care of yourself. Okay, you can be proactive. The old, shouldn't say it's an old saying, unfortunately, it's today's saying is that every patient must be their own advocate, because we really don't have people to fight for us anymore. And you need to be your own advocate if you don't feel well. Don't let, I teach that class, as the class that Joe DeVito forced me to come up with and teach at the Great Florida Fire School, which is the elephant in the firehouse, when ego gets in the way of passion. And you can't let your ego as a firefighter overdrive your self-preservation. If you knew you're not feeling well, and as our past president of the IAFF, Chief Gary LeDuc, said, don't let your bad day be your last day. Something along that line. And we play that in every podcast, because if you don't feel well, don't brush it off. If you had a hard shift, the last shift, and you don't feel well the next morning or later that day, tell somebody. Don't say, oh, they're going to think I'm a wuss. I just don't. No. Matter of fact, they're probably going to look up at you because you're the one who said, no, I got to do something about this now. I have a family. I'm the breadwinner for them. I got to make sure I'm okay. There's no embarrassment about being sick or injured. I got disabled in 1992 when I was 40 years old. It's been a long road since then. It wasn't easy, and it was difficult. 40. Who would ever think you'd be disabled at 40? But I'm here. I have a wonderful, beautiful wife, married almost 47 years. My first grandchild was born. I'm glad I'm around. I'm not happy I have this mysterious malady, but I'm here. And we're back for another season of 5-Alarm Task Force. And that's because I had to take action on my own. I had to do it. And that's what you have to do. Don't be afraid. Don't think because you're a firefighter, you're less of a person if you seek out medical help. You're a better person for your department, for your colleagues, and your family for doing so. And I think that's what we close on today. So, Todd, thanks so very much for being with us. Thanks for the information. Our undying thanks to Lifescan for this wonderful gift that's going to be the grand prize in the raffle for the webinar. And our special thanks to Tanya Herbert and the great people at Responder Wipes for jumping in with our two pieces of the first prize, a box and a bottle of the special wash for the winner him or herself, and a crate for his or her fire department as well, be shipped out. So we hope you'll join us. Again, it's the 31st, Tuesday the 31st at 6:30 p.m. We're all over social media. You can look up at the website bit.ly/, Give it to you here 1 second here. /PFOS_PFOA2021, where you can go to our website and you can see it right there. Todd, thanks for a great opening show for the season. Thanks for all the information that you share. Please extend our thanks to all the great people at Lifescan for helping us out, for being there for our first responders in this country. It's great to have a company so dedicated to a target audience, and yet are saving lives. Basically, with all the people you see, 50,000 people a year, saving lives probably almost every day, one way or another.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. And it's our honor to be part of this. And thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. Stay healthy yourself. And
thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Oh, before we go, folks, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. Being in South Florida, and I know Todd feels identical. We didn't talk about it, but I know we can't thank the USAR teams who came down to South Florida enough. Virginia just went over to Haiti. I'm trying to pick up word on other teams going, but they picked up, and just at the drop of a hat, they came down to help the people of South Florida. And that was amazing. That shows who we are and what we do. That's it. So folks, if you're watching the video, this will be the end of the video. If you're listening to the audio, please stay tuned. There'll be a couple of public service announcements, and we'll be back with a little bit more at the end. But thank you for joining us on this premiere episode of Season 6 of 5 Alarm Task Force. Please stay safe and stay well, and we'll be back next week with a new show. Bye-bye.